In the spring of 1886 in Ashton, underline Lancashire, England, a woman named Ann Britland followed the same narrow route each morning through the Milltown streets. She was 39 born, Marian Hag in Bolton, and had married Thomas Britland at St. Michael's Church. In 1866, soon after the marriage, two daughters were born, Elizabeth Hannah Britland, the elder, and Susanna Britland, a few years younger. The family lived respectably for many years in small rented rooms near the factories, moving later to Turner Lane, a row of modest brick houses within sight of the Ashton Chemical Works. Each day began in steady order. Mary Ann left before 8 for her shift at the cotton mill, returning in the evening to prepare the meal and help for several hours at a nearby public house. Thomas worked variable hours, sometimes assisting there as well. The elder daughter, Elizabeth, 19, managed the household while her mother was out. Neighbors described them as quiet and industrious. The move to Turner Lane had been recent, and they were thought to be improving their condition. Yet early that year, household money grew short. Marian began to ask about small insurance policies and visited local chemists for domestic remedies. In February 1886, the poison register at Harrison's Pharmacy recorded her name, beside a purchase of Harrison's vermin killer, a preparation then common for controlling rats. It contains strychnine and arsenic substances legally sold if entered under signature. The shop clerk later stated that the entry appeared regular and the payment was made in the usual way. Nothing in her routine suggested alarm. She washed linen on Mondays, took supplies from the market midweek, and attended chapel when work permitted. Her younger daughter, Susanna, often visited friends nearby. By March, the rhythm of the household remained unchanged. Elizabeth fell ill, suddenly complaining of spasms and weakness. Marian sent for the doctor, boiled water and measured powders from the cupboard. When death came, it was entered as natural. The burial followed quietly, the neighbors offering small condolences. The next morning, the mill whistle sounded across Ashton-under-Lyne, and Marian Britland resumed her work. After the burial of her daughter in March 1886, Marian Britland continued her days in a manner that drew no attention. She rose early, drew water from the yard pump, and went to the mill before the whistle at 8. The younger girl, Susanna, stayed some nights with friends on the next street, while Thomas Britland kept irregular hours between casual labor and the public house on Turner Lane. By the first week of April, Mary Ann again called at Kellington's chemist. The entry in the register bore her name, and the same purpose for rats. The cleared. She spoke plainly and seemed in no haste. She signed as before, paid 2 shillings, and left with the small packet folded in brown paper. At home, she prepared meals for her husband, boiled milk for his stomach pains, and sat with him at the table. Under the low gaslight, neighbors heard ordinary talk through the open window, plans to manage the rent, the coming fair, the price of flour. On Sundays, she attended chapel as usual. During those weeks, Thomas Britland was said to have complained of dizziness and sudden stiffness in the limbs. Marian fetched the local doctor, who prescribed a tonic. Nothing more was thought of it. The house remained quiet except for the mill bells. In early May, her visits to the Dixons next door became more frequent. Thomas Dixon, who worked at the gasworks, often called in for tea. His wife, Mary Dixon, was friendly with the Britons and helped with washing when Mary Ann worked late. The families had shared errands for years, borrowing small items between the two kitchens. On May 3, 1886, Thomas Britland was taken suddenly ill after the evening meal. The doctor was summoned again, but arrived too late. The symptoms, stiffness, convulsion, a drawn face, were attributed to a seizure. Death was registered under epileptic fit. Mary and received a small payment from the insurance agent within the week. She did not withdraw from routine. The following days, she was seen at the market speaking with the same clerks, counting her coins carefully. The chemist boy later recalled that she inquired again about the cost of poison, saying there were rats in the Dixon house next door. Through May, she continued to visit the Dixons in the evenings. The conversations were short about cleaning water tanks, the weather, the coming Whit's-tide holiday. On May 14th, Mary Dixon complained of cramps after tea. Neighbors helped to fetch the doctor, but the illness moved swiftly. By nightfall, she was dead. At Turner Lane, shutters were drawn on both houses. The same doctor signed a second certificate. No suspicion was yet raised. Marian closed the doors, tidied the table, and returned to her work the next morning. By the third week of May 1886, Turner Lane grew unusually quiet. The shutters of 2 houses remained closed, and few people saw Marian Britland outside, except on her way to the mill. The laughter that once drifted from the Dixon's kitchen was gone. Inside the Britland house, only Marian and her younger daughter remained. Neighbors began to remark upon the silence. Susanna Britton stayed often with relatives, saying her mother preferred the house to be still. When asked at the corner shop about the Dixons, Marian answered that poor Mrs. Dixon had died suddenly and that Mr. Dixon was much afflicted. She spoke briefly, paid for candles, and left. In the evenings she was observed crossing the narrow path between the 2 homes, sometimes carrying a kettle or a covered dish. Thomas Dixon, newly widowed, received her help with washing and meals. The light from his window burned late, yet something unsettled the street. John L., who kept the small coffee stall nearby, later told police that he had called on Dixon one afternoon to discuss funeral matters and found Marianne already there. Their conversation turned toward poison, and he recalled her asking what substance might leave no mark. At the time, he thought little of it. By the end of May, the air in Turner Lane carried unease. People avoided passing too close. The deaths of Elizabeth Thomas and Mary Dixon had come within 10 weeks of one another, all in adjoining houses. Still no official action had been taken. The local doctor's certificate stood unquestioned. It was not until mid-June that constables returned to the street. They came quietly in the early morning, when few were about. The chemist's registers had been examined, and the repeated entries of Marian Britland's name were now under review. That evening she did not appear at the public house. The lamps along Turner Lane flickered in a thin mist as doors closed early. By the summer of 1886, Turner Lane no longer felt like an ordinary working-class street. The mills still roared in the distance. The whistles still marked the hours. But inside the brick houses, something had shifted. 3 deaths, 1 woman, and a silence too heavy to ignore. Mary Ann Britland had lived her life without drawing attention. She was not loud, not cruel in public, not reckless. She followed rules. She signed registers. She paid in exact change. And that is how she survived for as long as she did. The first death, a daughter. Elizabeth Hannah Britland was 19 when she died. Healthy until the week she wasn't. She complained of tightness in her chest. Her hands curled without warning. Her body stiffened in spasms that frightened the neighbors. Mary Ann stayed calm. She boiled water. She measured powders. She told the doctor exactly what had happened. In 1886, doctors trusted mothers. The death certificate read natural causes. No post-mortem. No questions. Just a quiet burial. Mary Ann returned to the mill the next morning. The second death, a husband. Thomas Britland had always been sickly. That made things easier. He complained of dizziness. His limbs stiffened. His face pulled tight during sudden fits. Again, Mary Ann fetched the doctor. Again, medicines were given. Again, no suspicion. On May 3rd, after supper, Thomas collapsed. convulsions, rigid muscles, a frozen expression. The doctor arrived too late. Cause of death, epileptic seizure. Mary Ann collected the insurance money within days. She did not cry in public. She did not change her routine. She went to the market. She counted her coins. The third death, a neighbor's wife. Mary Dixon trusted her. Everyone did. Mary Ann helped with washing, borrowed kettles, shared meals. She crossed the narrow passage between the houses as if it were her own kitchen. On May 14th, Mary Dixon drank tea. Within hours, she was dead. Cramps, convulsions, a twisted face. Same doctor. Same explanation. Same silence. Now, 3 coffins had left Turner Lane. What people missed. What people didn't notice at first were the chemist's books. Victorian law required poisons to be recorded. Mary Ann knew this. She didn't hide. She signed her name clearly. February, vermin killer. April, vermin killer. May, questions about poison again. Always for rats. Always paid properly. Always calm. She believed legality would protect her. The 4th intended victim. After Mary Dixon's death, Mary Ann grew closer to Thomas Dixon, the widower. She cooked for him, cleaned his house, sat with him late into the night. Neighbors saw the light burning long after midnight. Then came the comment that changed everything. A coffee stall owner later told police that Mary Ann had asked casually, "What poison leaves no mark?" That sentence lingered. The arrest. By mid-June, authorities finally acted. Constables arrived quietly at dawn. They searched cupboards. They examined bottles. They exhumed bodies. This time science spoke. Strychnine. Arsenic. Too much to ignore. Mary Ann Britland was arrested without struggle. She showed no emotion. The trial. At trial, the evidence was overwhelming. Poison purchases. Insurance payments. Medical symptoms identical in all victims. She was charged with 3 murders. Her daughter Elizabeth. Her husband Thomas. Mary Dixon. The court convicted her quickly. She never confessed. The execution. On August 9, 1886, Mary Ann Britland was executed at Strangeways Prison. She walked calmly to the gallows. Witnesses said she did not cry. She did not pray aloud. She did not resist. Her final words were barely heard. Aftermath. Turner Lane never fully recovered. People avoided the houses. The silence stayed. Mary Ann Britland became known as one of England's most chilling poisoners, not because she was violent, but because she was ordinary. She killed without rage, without haste, without noise, and for months no one noticed. Mary Ann Britland's arrest did not come with shouting or struggle. There was no attempt to flee, no tears, no denial. When the constables arrived at Turner Lane in the pale light of early morning, she was already awake. The kettle was warm. The house was tidy. She listened as the warrant was read and nodded once, as if the visit had been expected. Neighbors watched from behind curtains. For weeks, Turner Lane had felt like a place holding its breath. Now it exhaled. The exhumations. Authorities ordered the exhumation of the bodies. This was rare, uncomfortable, and final. Elizabeth's coffin was opened first. The smell told one story. Science told another. Chemical analysis revealed strychnine in amounts no accident could explain. Then Thomas Britland's remains were examined. Again strychnine. Again arsenic. Finally Mary Dixon. Same result. Same poison. Same signature. 3 deaths. 1 method. 1 hand. Mary Ann in custody. In prison, Mary Ann behaved impeccably. She followed rules. She spoke politely. She kept her cell clean. The warders later said she was quiet, composed, and unsettlingly calm. She asked for no special treatment. She made no dramatic statements. She never admitted guilt. When questioned, she repeated the same phrase, "I did only what any woman might do." The trial begins. The trial opened in July 1886. The courtroom was full. Women came to see her face. Men came to hear how she had done it. Newspapers called her the Turner Lane poisoner. The prosecution laid out the pattern. Financial difficulty. Insurance policies. Legal poison purchases. Identical symptoms. Swift deaths. The defense had little to offer. Mary Ann's lawyer suggested coincidence. Illness. Bad luck. The jury did not believe it. The evidence that ended everything. One detail sealed her fate. The poison registers. Each purchase was signed in her own hand. No aliases. No disguises. She trusted the system too much. The judge called her actions cold, deliberate, and without remorse. The jury deliberated briefly. The verdict, guilty. Public reaction. Victorian England was horrified, not because she killed, but because of who she was. A mother, a wife, a neighbor. Newspapers asked, how many women poisoned quietly behind closed doors? Some called her a monster. Others called her a product of poverty. Many could not decide. Crowds gathered outside the prison daily. Yet Mary Ann never looked out the window. The psychology of Mary Ann Britland. Modern historians believe she was not driven by rage or madness. She was driven by control. Poison gave her power without noise. No struggle. No blood. No confrontation. Each death solved a problem. A dependent daughter. A sickly husband. An inconvenient neighbor. A potential future obstacle. She removed people the way others removed clutter. Quietly. The final morning. August 9th, 1886. The prison chapel bell rang before dawn. Mary Ann dressed carefully. Witnesses later said she walked steadily, hands folded, eyes forward. At the gallows, she spoke softly to the chaplain. No confession. No apology. No explanation. The lever was pulled. It was over. Aftermath on Turner Lane. Turner Lane never forgot. Families moved away. Children avoided the houses. The path between the Britland and Dixon homes became known locally as the Dead Passage. The mills kept running. Life went on. But the silence lingered. Why this case still matters. Mary Ann Britland was not the most violent killer. She was not the most dramatic. She was worse. She showed how easily normal life can hide methodical evil. She followed the law just enough. She trusted routine too much. She relied on silence. And for months it worked. When the trapdoor closed beneath Mary Ann Britland's feet, the crowd outside Strangeways prison expected relief. Instead, they felt unease. Because the question was no longer why she killed, but how long she had been able to do it without anyone noticing. The quiet aftermath. In the days following the execution, Turner Lane remained silent. No children played outside. No windows stayed open after dusk. Even the mill workers walked faster past the houses. People avoided saying her name. Mary Ann Britland was gone, but the fear she left behind was not. The investigation that came too late. Only after her death did authorities begin to ask the questions that should have been asked earlier. Why were so many poison purchases allowed from the same woman? Why were identical symptoms ignored across multiple deaths? Why was no post-mortem ordered after the first burial? The answer was uncomfortable. Victorian society trusted routine more than evidence. A working woman. A churchgoer. A mother. She did not look like a killer. What the doctors missed, medical journals later reviewed the case. Every victim showed classic signs of strychnine poisoning. Sudden muscle rigidity, painful convulsions, a frozen, grim expression at death. But at the time, these symptoms were easily blamed on epilepsy or natural illness. Doctors relied on appearance, not patterns. Mary Ann relied on that weakness. The insurance trail. Investigators also uncovered how carefully she planned. She never insured everyone at once. She staggered policies, small amounts, nothing suspicious alone. But together, they formed a pattern of intent. Money did not make her rich. It made her free. Susanna, the one who lived. One question haunted the public. Why did Susanna survive? The younger daughter had spent many nights away from home. By accident or instinct, she avoided the meals. After the trial, Susanna was sent to live with distant relatives. She never returned to Turner Lane. She never spoke publicly. Some historians believe she suspected something. Others believe she was simply lucky. Rumors that never faded. After the execution, whispers spread. Some believed Mary and planned more deaths. Others claimed Thomas Dixon would have been next. A former prison matron later said, "She behaved like someone who hadn't finished her work." No proof was ever found, but the idea lingered. A city changed by one woman. Ashton-under-Lyne responded quietly. Chemists tightened poison sales. Doctors became more cautious. Postmortems increased. Mary and Britland had exposed a flaw in the system. And systems do not like being exposed. Why this story still disturbs us. Mary and Britland did not fit the image of evil. She didn't shout. She didn't strike. She didn't run. She measured. She waited. She signed her name. Her weapon was patience. Her shield was normality. The final truth. Mary and never confessed. She took her reasons with her to the gallows. Whether she felt guilt or only inconvenience, we will never know. What remains is the lesson. Evil does not always announce itself. Sometimes it boils the kettle. Sometimes it serves tea. Sometimes it signs the register and walks home. And sometimes